So here is the Gravit application. And it's a pretty decent application overall. And note that it's running in my Chrome browser right now. So looking at this, what I've done initially is there was nothing here. I chose the paper size that I wanted to work with. I chose American Standard 8.5 by 11 letter size. And then once I had established that, it opened up to this workspace with a blank sheet of paper, which is actually directly underneath my image here, and you can see that right there. Also notice how my image is becoming cropped by that by taking it off the page. So this application works pretty well. Now, how did I get my image into this application? I went over to File, see if it's going to cooperate. I went over to File, and I went down to Import, and I went to Place Image. And then I navigated to where I had saved or airdropped, or I navigated to my Gmail drive, whatever it might be. You're going to navigate to where you have that drive, and you're going to go ahead and find that image and click Place, and then go ahead and get that image loaded in. Once you've got it loaded in, you can see that it'll come up here in this layers palette. Right now it says screenshot. Notice that I can turn that screenshot off or on. That's the physical image that's on this bottom layer. I can also lock that layer, which I'm actually going to do now. That's important because when I start drawing on top of this layer, I don't want to accidentally select the image and move it around. So above this, you can see that I have an option that says Create New Layer. I'm going to click on that. And notice now it has Layer 0 created. I'm going to click on Layer 0 to make sure that I have it highlighted. And then I'm going to come up to this tool right here. So at the very top, we see our toolbar for this application. It's a little bit limited, but there are some pretty decent design tools in here. The pen tool functions pretty close to how the pen tool functions in Illustrator. That's why I'd like to show this one to you. So our goal is to use the pen tool to go ahead and outline the negative space shapes that we have created. Also, realize that there's also a stroke, meaning the thickness of the line. So if I grab this pen tool here, and notice if I click and release, it plots a point. If I click and release again, notice it plots another point. Now, one of the things that I want to take a look at, you can see that that's relatively too big a stroke or a line to trace the teapot and the elephant. So I'm going to come on over here, and I'm going to go ahead and reduce this down to about 5 points, I'm thinking. And that looks more like a believable line segment. I'm going to get rid of that line segment just by clicking it with the direct select tool right here, or the pointer tool is what they call it in here. And then I'm going to hit that delete key. So now I'm going to zoom in so I can really see my artwork. To zoom in, interestingly enough, the quick keystrokes in this application are the same ones that we would use in Illustrator or Photoshop, and that would be Command plus or minus, okay? And looking at this, I can also temporarily hold the space bar down, and notice that it switches me to the hand tool, so I can go ahead and grab my image and drag it around when I'm zoomed in. So now I'm going to select the pen tool. I've got my, let's make sure that I set my stroke for the borders to a decent size. About 5 looks good. And I'm going to start by plotting a point right there. And then now I kind of want to estimate where I want to place the next point, because I'm going to show you the benefit of what this actually does. Because I can click and release and notice that it plots a line. But if I click and hold, notice that I can stretch and pull what we call a handle to define the direction of that line. So I've got my initial anchor point here. So I'm going to go right to here. I'm going to click and hold. And then I'm going to stretch. And notice that I'm stretching. I'm going up or down, or I'm pulling left or right to decide the shape. And notice now, I'm going to drop that right on there, and it creates a pretty nice shot overall. Now, this handle will dictate how the next curve will happen when it's there. So if I don't want that to happen, I need to come back to this point and click on it to get rid of that handle. Now I can come down here and click and hold, just like so. I'm going to go back, And then I'm going to click and hold, and notice I'm trying to pull that arc like so. I think I'll zoom in here a little bit using that hand tool temporarily. Now I'm going to click and hold here, and notice that I'm trying to pull that arc so it matches more or less with my drawing. This point is too far out, so let's go back to this point, click to get rid of that handle. I'm going to click and hold right here and pull, and notice now I've got that little curve right there. I don't like that. I'm going to do that again. Come right about here. There we go. And now I'm going to come right about here. And what this is going to allow you to do, it's going to allow you to refine the overall quality of your finished piece of artwork. And notice I took a little liberty there. I got rid of that one piece. Holding spacebar to temporarily change that hand tool. Need to click back there. Now we should be able to go right about. So I'm going to come to right here. And again, notice that I back up. I do that with Command Z to back up. Let's take this point back here. There's a little bit of a kind of a bump there that I'm trying to recreate. Notice that I always go back when I think I need to reset that point. I just click on that previous little mark. So let's see where we are. So remember, we're outlining the negative space. So now this line needs to come all the way over to this side. Now let me show you a quick keystroke that you can use in here just like you would in an Adobe app. You can go ahead and hold Shift to constrain it to a straight line. Notice that wherever I move my mouse with the pen tool, it's staying straight. If I let go of Shift, notice that it follows my mouse pointer. So I'm going to hold Shift. I'm going to click right there. And now I'm going to continue to do what I was doing before. I'm going to click and hold and pull to line that up. I'm going to release. Go to right about there. And then I'm going to click and hold and pull. See if I can get that curved the way I want it. Not too bad. And I think that I'll go all the way out here. Not sure I like that shape. I'm going to back up a little bit more back down to here. And let's see if I can get that shape the way I want it. Right to there, like that. I'm going to click and hold. I'm going to put a little curve in the top just for fun. I'm going to bring that back. Just need to come down here. I'm going to click and hold and pull so I can get that curve. I'm going to come back to that point. Remember, we're outlining the negative space, so I need to concentrate on this line right here now. So I'm going to click and hold and bring that up. I'm going to go to this point, click and hold, bring that point back. I'm going to click and hold here, bring that over. I need to bring this point back, and then I'm going to click and hold, pull a little bit right there. So now we have the negative space well defined that falls in between both the teapot and the elephant on the right. Now you'll notice that once I made it all the way back around to where I was, that when I closed the pathway, that it automatically filled the entire object. So if I click on this object now that I've created, and let me turn off the background so you don't have to see it, there's the physical drawing that I just made. So I outlined that negative space. Okay. Now notice that we have what we call a stroke and then a fill, meaning the inside color and the outside color. Maybe I want to come in and change the way that these look. So let's come in, maybe I'll double click there to pull up my color palette. Maybe I will go with a blue, okay? And then let's go back over here, and then maybe the outline. No, come on. Maybe for the outline I will do I don't know about orange. Maybe yellow. And again, you could come up here and play with the hue or the variation of yellow depending on what you want to do. I kind of like that darker kind of maroon color that's there. So now that we've got that, so this would be your goal now. So I want you to evaluate either your positive or negative space. I want you to go ahead and photograph it. Then I want you to get it dropped into either Illustrator or in this case you can use Gravit. You will have to create an account for Gravit and make sure you don't do the pro version, that you do the free version. And let's say that I like this and I'm happy with it, and all of a sudden we go, oh, we're coming back to school next week. Oh, are my files that I'm doing inside Gravit, am I going to be able to use those in Illustrator? Yes, but what you'll have to do is you'll have to save them correctly. So once you've got your image to a point where you're happy with it, you would want to make sure, and you would actually want to make sure that you're saving this all the time, but you can export this. And we would want to go ahead and export this as a scalable vector graphic, or an SVG, because we can import that right back into Illustrator and begin to work on it as we see fit. So a little ambidextrous, you can go back and forth between the two applications, but this is primarily for those of you that don't have access to the Chromebooks right now. I would encourage you to go ahead and take a look at this application and use this application to go ahead and get started on this assignment. So the goal is, one, go ahead and evaluate your drawings from the first part of the semester, both positive and negative space 1 and 2. Pick one, take a picture of it as square on as you can, no distortion. Get that either online or to your computer, and then go ahead and import the image by coming over here to File and Import and Place Image. This would almost be verbatim in Illustrator, except that you would go File and you would pull down to an option that says Place, and then you could go ahead and select your image or your drawing, whatever it might be. Once you've got that image imported, remember we are working in what we call layers here. You want to go ahead and lock this layer because it is an object, and if you accidentally select this page, the object by accident, you could be working directly on it. So I like to kind of constrain and kind of divvy them up into layers. So I have my picture and it's locked on its own layer. And then notice I created a new layer and it titled it Layer 0. I could go ahead and rename that and call that vector drawing if I want to. That way it's kind of keep track of what's on my layers. This one I could come in, we could just go ahead and call this one drawing. So that way now you kind of have them defined. It's always good to be really organized. So goal is pick one of those guys, get it imported into a photograph, get it dropped into Illustrator, get it dropped in to Gravit, and then go ahead and use the pen tool to go ahead and create both a fill and a stroke all the way around the objects. Now we'll talk more about fill and stroke when I see you guys again in class on Wednesday, but I would really like you to go ahead and get started on this ASAP. I think you'll appreciate how quickly you can work and how easily you can refine your overall drawings. We'll go and stop right there for a moment.